More than 100 years ago, the world experienced one of the deadliest wars in human history, the First World War. Only second to its sequel, and apparently a bunch of Chinese wars. The more you know, I guess. There have been many attempts to portray this conflict, mainly through film. Although there is no shortage of World War I games, they are very much overshadowed by games about the Second World War, which has been the focus of most mainstream game franchises. Except for one, Battlefield. Hi, I'm Somnababuan, and I have an unhealthy habit of buying games and not playing them. So I've decided to go through my entire Steam library in alphabetical order, starting with Battlefield 1. This game released in 2016 to positive reviews. 5 years later, I bought it. And unlike most games I buy, I actually played it. Back then, I remember liking it a lot, and it was actually the first FPS game I'd ever played. Back then, I also only played the campaign, which I will be doing this time as well. So what about the campaign? Well, it's cut up into 5 separate stories, set all across the Great War, starting with a prologue set during the Second Battle of the Marne. So let's dive right into it. On hard mode, obviously. As I mentioned, the prologue is set during the Second Battle of the Marne, where we play as the Harlem Hellfighters. Here we get thrown right into the action and get to familiarize ourselves with different weapons. We even get to be a tank gunner. All the while, an unnamed soldier narrates about the horror of the war. Eventually, we get caught in an artillery barrage and wake up to find ourselves in a real movie standoff that ends in a montage of clips from the other campaigns. After the prologue, we get to play the first campaign, Through Mud and Blood. In this campaign, we play as the driver, from Drive. Who drives? Tanks. Or not, since it's apparently his first day at the job. Among our crew, we find our commander, Townsend, the friendly mechanist, Mech and Likeable, and another guy who dies later. This campaign, in my opinion, has some of the highest highs, but also some lows. On one hand, it lets me live out my dream of playing as Jay Schlatt in the Valley of Tears.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And on the other, I despise stealth sections in non-stealth games. It starts off strong with us pushing through and capturing a village, leading the charge for the infantry. Although after we've successfully pushed through, we get stuck in mud and unfortunately lose the guy who dies later and the friendly mechanist. We get saved by an extremely danger-close barrage that miraculously kills all the Germans, but leaves the tank unscathed. After this, it leads into easily the worst part of the campaign for me. I mean, what is this? As I said earlier, I heavily despise stealth sections in non-stealth games, so this segment was not something I enjoyed. We have to guide the tank through dense forest and German bases to get us to the rendezvous point where we'll meet up with friendly forces again. But when we get there, we find that the town is no longer in our possession, and that our tank needs new parts. So Townsend sends us out alongside Mech and Likeable to steal the parts we need. However, before we can start the mission, Mech and Likeable decides to desert, and thus we basically clear the entire town and steal the parts we need, by ourselves. In the end, I found a horse. Now, having pleasant memories of horses from Kingdom Come Deliverance, I decided to ride it back to the tank. But I could never have guessed that this was no Pebbles, for this horse was both a double agent and a shapeshifter. However, McLikeable decides to become McLikeable and saves us from this evil horse German. Now begins the final push. Once again, we find a huge group of enemy soldiers and decide to take it on ourselves. In order to save our comrades in Cambrai, we destroy pretty much the entire German tank fleet. But oh no! We get caught in another barrage and a surprise attack. Townsend sacrifices himself, and we make it out with McLikeable, who finally dubs us as the driver.
So, what do we do now, driver?
Overall, I think it's a good start to the campaign. The tank combat is strong and quite enjoyable, but it is heavily dragged down by the middle part. I realized later on in the game that you can throw lures and such, but I'm kinda stupid and I'll still gripe on about this. Moving forward, or should I say upward, you're right, I'll just see myself out. In this next campaign, we play as a pilot in the Royal Flying Corps. The guy we play as is an asshole, so of course he's American. The campaign is, in my opinion, the worst one in the game. It's not bad, at least not as bad as I remembered it, but the plane controls can occasionally be unwieldy. The story itself is pretty enjoyable though. It starts with you essentially stealing a plane and taking it for a test drive. In this test drive, you accidentally stumble upon some German fighters, as well as a huge ammo depot. Your rear gunner quickly snaps a few pictures, and we report back to command. Somehow, no one has discovered the actual pilot yet, so we get sent on a mission to act as support for bombers. This battle took me a long time to beat. The Germans must have discovered cloning, because it feels like I was fighting a whole swarm of Red Barons. Because our character is a bad pilot, we get caught up in a big explosion and crash land behind enemy lines. This is my favorite part, mainly because I didn't have to use whack-ass plane controls anymore. We sneak, alternatively fight our way through enemy lines, into no man's land, rescue our friend, who we briefly contemplate killing, and get back to our side. At this point, the jig is up, and we get arrested and sent back to jolly old England to be court-martialed. Although almost as if on cue, a German air raid gives us the opportunity to jump in a plane and continue the fight. Even back when I first played this game, I found it kinda weird that these blimps were able to withstand all this. I mean, I read the what was the Hindenburg as a kid and knew a blimp couldn't withstand all that. Anyways, at the end we jump to our certain deaths, but survive perfectly with no broken bones. In the closing monologue, our protagonist presents an alternative series of events, but it's fine, cause he says he'd tell us if they were true. It's not like he told us he's dishonest earlier.
I'm just not a very honest person.
The next story is absolute peak. We play as Luca Coccola. Coccola? I don't know, I'm not Italian. An Arditi shock trooper fighting in the Dolomites. The story is told through Luca as an old man reciting the story to his daughter. We start by saying goodbye to our balding brother Matteo, who's joining the main assault on an Austro-Hungarian fort. Meanwhile, we've geared up in a full set of armor, carrying a machine gun to provide support. The following section makes you feel like a Terminator just tearing through Austro-Hungarian lines. We take out a cannon and commandeer an AA gun to shoot down the enemy bombers. Eventually, the enemy blows up the mountain, causing a plane to crash on top of us. When we wake up, Luca decides that we're too much of a Chad to depend on armor and a machine gun. So we ditch those and pick up a teeny tiny piss gun. It makes do though. Although I did pick up another machine gun as quickly as I could. After blowing up some enemy armored cars, we advance to keep on searching for our brother. We find his unit, but realize he's not there, so he must have been with the group that got to the fort. After fighting our way through the tunnels under the fort, we find some Austrians who have stolen our drip. They are hard to kill, and make me curse Luca's decision to ditch his armor. In the end, we find Matteo lying among the bodies, and it is revealed that Luca never got to give him his gift of minoxidil. This campaign is pure Kino, and my favorite part of the game. This is why I got the game, to feel like I was part of a larger battle, something not really present in the earlier campaigns. The framing of the story being told many years later also adds a lot in my opinion. Following this up is the short and sweet Gallipoli campaign. When I first bought it, this was definitely the part I was looking forward to the most. I had seen Laserbeam play this before he fell into the Fortnite black hole. You play as the living legend, Frederick Bishop, partaking in the storming of the beaches. We're introduced to our new charge, Jack Foster, an overly enthusiastic young man eager to fight. Although Bishop quickly sees his inexperience and decides he's not ready. So we go off on our own. Like a legend, we establish a beachhead by capturing an overlooked station by ourselves. Or so we thought, because right behind us was Jack Foster. He's shocked by seeing the bodies, but is reassured by the phrase, "Australians never die." The next day, Foster is ordered to be a runner to the front. But like a legend, we volunteer in his stead. In the process, we find out that the front is to be evacuated and the enemy fort and village will be bombarded. As we deliver this information to the front, we learn that, like a legend, Foster volunteered to join the assault on the Ottoman fort. And so we go to get them boys out. When we get there, they complain that there are too many Ottomans in the way. So like a legend, we volunteer to serve as a distraction. What kind of distraction? Well, storming the fort by ourselves, of course. So like a legend, we capture the fort and raise the Australian flag and die to our own cannon fire. What's my opinion on this campaign? Legend status. Finally, we move to the deserts of Arabia. According to the wiki, this campaign takes place in today's Saudi Arabia. But in the interest of flexing, I'd say that the in-game map looks more like it'd be in Jordan. In which case, I can say, I've been there. We begin by hearing some stereotypical Middle Eastern music and some sweeping shots of the desert. When we get control of our character, Sarah Gufran, we are tasked with stealing a codebook, something we do quite quickly after dispatching of the current owners. But to our surprise, we are stopped by an evil Turk, who in turn is surprised by Lawrence of Arabia's arrival. With these codes, we can send the order to stand down to a terrifying metal beast called Canavar the Tank Engine that has been terrorizing local tribesmen. However, we need to send 3 orders to the train, and so we assassinate 3 different Ottoman officers and send our messages. But oh no! The evil Turk escaped and alerted the train about Lawrence's camp. Just as he's about to kill us, we turn his own knife on him.
Oh, Lawrence of Arabia dies tonight.
We meet back up with Lawrence, who tells us that the camp has been evacuated. We also get the mission to set up a bomb on the railway. But of course, there's too many Ottomans in the town, so we deal with them quietly. After this, we get to fight in a good old-fashioned boss battle. This goddamn train took me way too long to destroy, and I am now Pavloved to fear the sound of a train whistle. Anyways, after this we get to hear some more generic Middle Eastern music as we stare awkwardly at Lawrence. And that was it. That was Battlefield 1. As I said, I won't get into the multiplayer. You'll have to watch someone else's video for that. Ultimately, I think it's a pretty good game that holds up. The gunplay is good, the campaigns are mostly good, and even if it's not the most historically accurate game, the World War I setting is really engaging. Something I do wish was in the game would be the perspective of the Central Powers. But besides that, there's not really anything I'm missing. And that's the World War I experience.